If I were the devil, if I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness.
Welcome everyone to Hell is Warm on the Home Front. I'm your host, Bradley J. Barrett. Thanks for tuning in. This episode is taking our scientific research into a whole new direction, in a whole new arena, into a whole new form of scientific fusion. This show is being broadcasted over 5 different mediums. This show uses YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, WordPress, and SoundCloud. These services are available free here at Madison College. Gonzo best describes my childhood. My father would say, patience is a virtue. I never knew what he meant until becoming a journalist. My dad also loved Walter Cronkite. Each day that goes by, I wonder what he would think of all this. My favorite childhood memory was holding up these slides and listening to my parents talk about their work at Summit Park in Appleton. While pursuing journalism practicum, a lesson I learned in the documentary storytelling course, the Crucible is the balance between virtue and vice. Scientifically, Machiavellianism, which is one of the gonzo elements of the Crucible. Bias is hate, hate is demonic, Machiavellianism is the result, by exposing behavior through bias. I'm Bradley J. Barrett, reporting in Madison, Wisconsin, in front of Hooters. Reporting for the Jaded Patriot Press. Livestream, as a confessional, it depicts the scientific value of documentary. Authenticity translates to maxim. Maxim translates to philosophy. Philosophy is what we're going to examine with this expose. But first, let me show you an example. This documentary here is referred to as lived experience. The Crucible is my role as a drummer. On November 29th, our class received extra credit for attending this workshop. I got up and spoke about the song you were listening to called Like the City. The song depicts fear and loathing as a metal drummer. What I didn't share was how journaling about demonic activity as a metal drummer eventually led to becoming a gonzo-mentarian. I started out as a corporate comm major, and then one day during documentary storytelling class, my professor, Brad Horn, is like, dude, are you going to come to the dark side? And then 2 weeks later, he said, so you are coming to the dark side. And that was where this began. That dude, Professor Kasalki, and Dr. James Cates are my journalism Jedi masters. Thank you for being awesome. Let's dissect the Crucible of the state of Wisconsin versus Jesse Schworck. We will use the confessional cross-examination diary method to prove bias in his case and also profile prejudice by Judge Chris Taylor and her ties to Normal, Wisconsin. The claim of Taylor's bias against Schworck is the gonzo element. For the first time, we will argue an op-ed by symbolically using the Bible through my mythos argumentation style. The confessional through self-examination uses the Bible for self-reflection with examining jurisprudence. Jurisprudence from the vantage point of being sworn as a judge denied Schworck his liberty to have authentic audio for future argument. Experimental law provides a portal for scripture to be used as a source for measuring maxim. Demons use telepathy through vice to channel hate, which manifests bias. By possessing the authority, abusive process happens in the form of Machiavellianism. For measuring Machiavellianism, it really is simple. Just use a smartphone. The smartphone is the device. The smartphone allows you the opportunity to scroll through op-eds and get a better idea of what other people are doing. And for this situation, with the Jaded Patriot Press, where these blogs were published, they were a part of my actual class projects. These are samples of building a strong op-ed. Gonzo 19 kicked off in 2022, which is where I met Schworck. I didn't pick Gonzo, Gonzo picked me, which happened in Las Vegas in 2017 before I enrolled in school. He helped me evade my bully and became my project experiment subject. Together, we speak Gonzoese. Being labeled as non-traditional at UW-Whitewater led to really weird occurrences that I would consider, and I believe Hunter S. Thompson would consider, professionally weird. We revisited the scene of 555 Mifflin Street, and despite being denied courtroom audio recording for the documentary, we journeyed on. Schworck battles being gaslighted by the new normal and faces the wrath of Dane County.
Live, coming at you, Lion of Judah, House of Rastafari. Once again, giving you guys an update on the mess that's going on here in Wisconsin. And so, among other controversies lately, you'll find we're still moving forward with our own controversy. The Supreme Court doesn't know what they got going on. on a lot of different levels. But we just recently went to the Supreme Court ourselves, and right now the perspective is that they've already given us in the lower courts what amounts to is an exemption or an exception regarding the ability to use cannabis for religious. My bond was amended previously to make an allowance or an exception, some type of an exception for that.
The documentary Judge Taylor Doesn't Want You to See shares this op expose style, which examines her bias through retrospect, which is an op-ed argument regarding the isthmus glamorizing of her friend Alan Robinson. From introspect, I will provide my deposition as both journalist and ordained demonologist, sharing my knowledge of the cannabis legalization corruption in Dane County and what I witnessed as bias in her courtroom. Her thugging by her bailiff when I requested a reason why I was not allowed to record should be grounds enough for recusal.
Aside from religion, you have a conscience to be able to live a life with the liberty that you wish to live in, as long as you don't harm other people and their property. So, in the same way, we find ourselves caught up in their controversy. And recently, what's happened is that we haven't went to any trial yet. It's been 4.5 years, so things have been just getting held on the burner and waiting. And also in federal court, we have a habeas corpus filed, and it's in the point where it's in the appeals court, and one step below the U.S. Supreme Court. So this is dealing with the issue, the very nature of whether someone even has the ability to say that they have an identity at all.
Fear and loathing is the dark side of journalism. Behind the scenes, people like Alan Robinson run around the community and intimidate people. And matter of fact, he uses a pseudonym. He calls himself Brutus Hammer. Well, Brutus Hammer showed up to the scene taking selfies with law enforcement and caught a lot of flack for it. The Dane County Sheriff's raid of Schworck's 555 Mifflin Street Sanctuary became his crucible. The truth the Isthmus article does not provide is the fact that Alan Robinson of the New Normal is friends with Schworck's judge, Chris Taylor. Maxim took a day off in Branch 12 when Taylor accepted the position after Governor Tony Evers appointed her. Alan Robinson, the day of the raid, has a direct line connect to Schworck's judge. Prior to being placed on the bench, Judge Taylor was in the assembly, and Alan Robinson was working as a quorum member of Madison Normal to connect with them, making connects, and the Isthmus does not provide that to you. Being a club enforcer for Madison Normal tells a completely different story than what the Isthmus says. That sounds like Normal, Wisconsin's leadership under Alan Robinson. As Robinson's club enforcer, I can say his demons got the best of him at times, and now he pays the penalty. Let's unpack what it looked like being on the scene, on location with them before becoming a journalist and committing to this field and realizing, oh my God, this is the dark side of what nonprofits do. So let's wrap up with Jesse, and then I want to go into a method that I use to profile the dark side of journalism, which I use for gonzo storytelling. Ironically, Madison Normal and Hunter S. Thompson used a pseudonym. Bob Cobb became Commander Cobb, which was the handle on the Madison Normal Slack channel that represented the connect between the American Legion and Normal in this article. Commander Cobb is supposed to help veterans who are at risk come to Normal and find resources. Stevenson and company ran me out of the chapter. By the end of Harvest Fest 2018, our quorum was approached by Philip Scott, who alleged we stole his hemp. We also were alleged that bad things were happening behind the scenes that I had no idea they were going on. The allegations were flying in left and right, and as the club enforcer, it was just getting too tough to handle. Stevenson was alleged by event attendees about his role with campaigning for Evers through the Madison Normal chapter. His sidekick, Dan Connors, did not provide membership with reports, which ultimately led to my resignation. And in the meantime, Alan Robinson was behind the scenes trying to plot and outdo everyone, thinking he was going to be the one to legalize marijuana. As we close out the report, I hope you will consider taking these methods used to create your own hypothesis for building a gonzo crucible narrative. Before getting credentialed, I strongly urge you to study demonology so that you can understand the dark corners of what you're about to experience in the public affairs field. The dark side of journalism is public affairs. The dark side of journalism documentary is gonzo research. Collaboratively, using these methods, you yourself can become a citizen journalist or become a journalist who's seasoned in the field to be able to write well and find new resources for research.
Do our part in our duty to carry on and teach people what our constitutional values do, how they protect us, the importance of defending that. So there's a reason why people are so willing to go and defend that throughout the centuries and preserve it. And that's one of the reasons that we ourselves are in the situation we are with our church. We have constitutional rights that we're trying to bring forth and stand strong on.
If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves.